Oh, jeez. Oh, sorry I'm late. Chip? Where's Chip?
He's out on the field doing forensics.
Well, this might just be the best mysteries episode yet. Because we have got the case of Elisa Lam.
It's one of the most obsessively followed true crime cases of this century.
This gruesome discovery is the latest chapter in a dark history for the Cecil Hotel.
Cecil is a very deceiving hotel. There's a lot of beauty to it, but there's the complete opposite.
You guys might actually know this case already because there was a Netflix documentary all about it, and it's all about the Cecil Hotel out in LA. And this is a very mysterious case, and I know you guys either have already made your conclusions because you know of the case, but if not, I really want to know what you guys actually think happened to Elisa Lam. So let's get into this one. A little bit of background about Elisa Lam. Her parents were immigrants from Hong Kong, and she was a Canadian student, right, at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. On January 26, she arrived in LA and checked into Cecil Hotel. Now, this is obviously where it all went down, spooky Cecil Hotel, and she shared a room with other people. Now, the other people actually said that she was very weird. She was a little bit odd, and she was actually ended up being moved to her own room. I mean, if that's all you have to do to get your own room, might just start acting a bit odd. Now, previously, Elisa Lam had actually been diagnosed with something called BDP, which is just bipolar disorder. And not only that, but she also was diagnosed with depression. She was on medication for these things, and that's super important to remember for this case because it definitely gets a little bit weird. Elisa actually had a blog back then where she would talk about her mental illness, fashion, trends, things like that, and it was called Ether Fields. After that though, she ended up moving it across to the very popular site at the time, Tumblr, under the new name Nouvelle Nouveau. Now I could have butchered the pronunciation of that, but there we go. She would post about all these sort of things, so there was quite a lot to read about her, and you could really understand and get into the mind of someone that suffered with these mental illnesses. It's time to do a little ad. Look, this thing ain't gonna shine forever. We gotta keep the lights on. And today, it's our good friends, again, from Babbel. Shout out to Babbel. If you guys are interested in learning a new language, or even just expanding your tiny little brain, yeah? How about we put it to use? And we download Babbel, and look, it comes in 15-minute lessons, so it's really easy. Whether you are going to work, going to uni, going to your job, whatever you do, 15 minutes, you always have time to squeeze in a little language lesson. So if that is of interest, then Babbel do it best. Honestly, guys, a lot of these other companies, they tend to use like AI type of machines to teach you, but this is all created by real language experts, right? Seriously, there's like over 100 of them. It's nuts. And like I said, you can get the app or you can get it online, but either way, it will just track your progress. So, you know, you do a 15-minute lesson while you're on the tube going to work, and then you come home, it'll update, and so you don't have to try and find where you were and it doesn't get all complicated. Not only that, but they have something called Babbel's speech recognition technology, and that helps you improve your pronunciation in whatever language you decide to go with. Now, you might be wondering, what languages do they have? Well, they have over 14 different languages. Obviously, they got some of the big ones in there. Espanol, Spanish, for you uncultured swines, yeah? French, Italian, German, the list goes on. Go and check it out, have a look. There is nothing sexier than being able to speak another language. So if this is of any interest to you guys, then go ahead, download Babbel, and what you guys get is you will get 6 months free if you purchase a 6-month subscription using the promo code MYSTERIES, right? So you want to go to uk.babbel.com/play, use the promo code MYSTERIES for an extra 6 months free. That's uk.babbel.com/play. Promo code MYSTERIES. Now it's time to start talking about the crime. February 1st. While traveling, Elisa would always be talking to her parents. Now, she's obviously in LA. Every day she'd be on the phone, she'd chat to the parents. And one day, on February 1st, when she was actually supposed to be going to Santa Cruz, the parents didn't hear from Elisa Lam. So what did they do? They called the LAPD and they let them know, guys, I haven't heard from my daughter. Can you look into it, please? Now, the last people that saw her on January 31st actually said that she was by herself, she was alone, but she was also looking relatively happy and lively, and nothing seemed to be up. A week later, the police started doing a bit of a wider search. They even brought in dogs to try and track her scent, but unfortunately for them, they weren't able to just go and access all the rooms because technically a crime hadn't been committed yet. They just haven't managed to find Elisa Lam. After that, the police decided, right, let's post her image online, see if we can get a bit of attention around this, see if anyone recognizes her, say that they've seen her, any tips, things like that. A week after that now, on February 15th, the police went and released a 2.5-minute long video of Elisa in the elevator, and you can see that she is acting quite strange.
I remember talking to my partner and say, her behavior is unusual.
There's something going on there. And of course, we've mentioned the mental illness. Was this like an episode that was going on? You can see her movements are really weird. She looks a little bit distressed. It's a very odd video, and it raised a lot of eyebrows because it went online, and next thing you know, loads of people were chiming in with their thoughts of what was going on. In fact, in the space of 10 days on a Chinese website, the video got 3 million views, right? And over 40,000 comments. So these internet sleuths, they were tuning in. Everybody wanted to give their thoughts on what was happening. But still, there was no evidence of her, whether she was alive, taken, her body, or anything, until February 19th, 4 days later. Guests started complaining that the water pressure was really low, and some even were saying that there was like black, that the water was coming out looking all black and grim. And now I can imagine if I was staying at a hotel, I would probably complain about that as well. That's not something you just brush off to the side, right? If you have black water coming out, it's best to let someone know. They obviously let the hotel know, and they went up to go and check on the water tank on the roof. Now, this water tank provides water for the entire hotel and a coffee shop as well. It's a 1,000-gallon tank. Like, this is a massive water tank on the roof. And lo and behold, they found Elisa Lam's body in this tank. As you can imagine, the body they found wasn't in the nicest condition, right? So they said it was moderately decomposed, and they said it was mostly greenish, with some marbling evident on the abdomen and skin separation. Now, look, I'm no coroner, so I can only, in my head, imagine what that looks like, but that sounds pretty grim. The autopsy report came in, and they had concluded that she had died from drowning, right? And as you would in a massive tank like this, but one, how does she get into a massive tank like this? The hotel itself, you had to have keys, passcodes, things like that in order to even just get onto the roof. And then a lot of people were saying as well, in order to get into that tank, you would need something like a ladder, but there was no ladder there that was obvious that she had used. It's not like she got in and then managed to put the ladder away. That doesn't really make any sense there. So the big question is, how did she get into the tank? Was there someone with her? A lot of people were thinking, look, in the video, it looks like, could they have cut out a bit where a guy was following her? Was she actually really anxious that she'd been followed? Was she murdered? Or was this a suicide? But in the autopsy, they said there was no signs of trauma or suicide. So how does she just go into a tank and drown? She wasn't forced in there because there was no signs on her body that she was forced or forced even to be drowned. And then it also didn't look like suicide. So as you can imagine, there's so many questions around her death. They also say by, sort of breaking an entry onto the roof, if you didn't have the right keys or passcode and stuff, an alarm would have gone off. So how has this happened? Anyways, we're gonna run through a few of the theories now. First things first, were there any drugs in her system? Obviously, she was on medication, so you were expecting certain prescription drugs, but was there anything else? Did she take anything else, or was she spiked, anything like that? But they did say they looked in her body in the autopsy, and there was no drugs to be found. Now, obviously, there had been quite a few days past. Had those drugs decomposed in her body? Would there even have been any traces that long after her death? I don't know. Again, I'm not the coroner there, but ultimately they didn't find any drugs in her body. Another theory was maybe she was just having like a psychotic episode. We remember that she did suffer from BDP, and not only that, but they found in her system that she was actually undertaking her medication. So, she wasn't taking the right amount to deal with it, and could that have led to a psychotic episode, which meant that she felt as though, almost like when you're dream walking, you're not really there, you're not properly connected, and so she's just walked up, got in the tank. Still, how did she get in the tank? I don't know. Even body language experts took a look at the video, and they were saying that the videos actually showed a level of emotional dissonance. And look, like it is a really weird video, and when you watch it, you're not really quite sure what's going on there, and it might have even been the case she wasn't even quite sure what was going on there. There was the theory that I mentioned earlier that someone was actually following her as well, and it was just cut out of the video. Did the police get their hands directly on the tape, or was it tampered with beforehand to get rid of someone that maybe was important to the hotel or important somewhere else, and they've decided to cut him out? Some people reckon so. I think that particular theory is maybe a bit far-fetched, but hey, look, weirder things have happened. Of course, there are the arguments that she was just depressed and this was actually a suicide, but going back to it, her parents said this just wasn't like her. She wouldn't have committed suicide, and she wasn't necessarily in a bad way, because they were speaking to her every day that she was traveling, so you'd like to think that they knew. But it wouldn't be the first time that a parent has thought everything was okay with their child and everything wasn't. So while she may have not shown any suicidal tendencies, it's not completely out of the question that maybe she was going through some stuff and she did kill herself. Ghosts. Yes, I know you guys are going to love this theory. Now, Cecil Hotel was actually created in 1924 in Skid Row. Look, if you know anything about LA, Skid Row is not the nicest of places, and it's pretty rough, to be fair. In fact, this hotel actually had a serial killer stay there as well, who went by the name Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker. It was also the last known whereabouts of the Black Dahlia. Now, that's a bit spooky. I'm going to be honest with you. That's a bit spooky, and I feel like we could go off in a tangent here and go and talk about all sorts of ghost stuff, but I am going to rein it in, and I know if Chip wasn't out on the field doing his detective work right now, he would love to go a little bit deeper into the ghost, but that's not for me.
Guys, I might not be there today. I'm out in the field doing real detective work, so I don't want to hear no fraud comments, okay?
Here's an interesting theory. It's the dark water connection. Now, this is a movie, right? And this movie has very similar events to what actually happened in real life. And what I mean by that is that, there was someone in the movie called Dahlia, and there was someone in the movie called Cecilia, right? Not quite Cecil Hotel, but Cecilia, so a little bit. But more importantly, what happens in the movie is residents at the apartment complex where Dahlia and Cecilia are staying, they end up complaining again, similar to the hotel guests, of that dark water, the grim water coming out of the taps, right? And not only that, but again, it leads to a discovery of a body in the tank on the roof. Almost identical scenarios here. So is this a case of someone wanting to emulate that exact movie, or is this just a big coincidence? Who knows? Here's one for the conspiracy theorists. Right, now this one's interesting. It's the tuberculosis tests. Now, Elisa was actually a guinea pig, right, for a new tuberculosis medication. And what people noticed was, because there was a big outbreak in Skid Row in 2013, that there is now a particular test called the Lam-Elisa test, right? And it's there to detect any tuberculosis. Now, why would the name be so similar? First of all, did something go wrong with the medication? And did this cause her to have an episode with some of the other medication which she was taking? Or did it go horrifically wrong to the point where they needed to get rid of her and she needed to be killed and put there? And maybe that might link in to one of the other theories, which was that there was maybe a man or someone following her and she felt really stressed, like she knew something was up. Now, if you thought that last one was quite nuts, here's my final theory for you, and it's the fact that it was a portal to another dimension.
I thought this was a commercial. What's going on? I mean,
Relax, Morty. Don't worry about it. Let's just see where this
I'm not
goes.
too sure how far into this theory I want to go, but for the listeners and the viewers, I'll briefly go over it. I'm going to have to read this one out, though, because it is really that nuts, okay? And I'm not too sure I quite understand it. So let's roll. So one of the craziest theories suggests that Lam died because she opened the door to another dimension. Bear with me. This theory hinges on believing the spooky urban myth of the Korean elevator game. According to the rules now, a player has to enter an elevator alone, press a series of buttons in a certain order, right, to enter a parallel dimension. Now, in this new world, electronic devices don't work and there's nothing outside but a red cross. I'm sorry, but this sounds like hell, if I'm honest with you. This sounds terrifying. Now, the player is not supposed to leave the elevator, and if a strange woman steps on, they shouldn't speak to or look at her. Some theorize that Lam was trying to play this game when it all went horribly wrong. Now, look, that's just a bit weird to me. I'm not going to really go with that one. I will say, out of these theories, I really do think that it was most likely just a psychotic episode due to whether her medication or just something had gone wrong. And maybe even it was like, you know when you're sleepwalking, right? Or some people do this where they just walk out and they don't realize they're doing anything. You don't really have any control over it. And then they wake up and someone will tell you, oh, mate, yeah, you went to the fridge and poured yourself, you know, a bowl of milk. And then you wake up, you don't remember any of that. Was it something like that had happened with one of these episodes? I don't know, but I think that is probably the most likely. Although it's not the most exciting theory, it is really interesting. What do you guys think? Let me know. What do you think is the theory? I'll give you a quick update on this. September 2013, her parents actually filed a wrongful death suit where they claimed the hotel failed to inspect and just keep the hotel safe so that something like this didn't happen. And they said that there was some wrongdoing on the hotel's part. They could have done a better job at ensuring you couldn't just access the roof and, well, drown yourself, I suppose. But unfortunately for the parents, that failed, and they lost that lawsuit, and it was dismissed. Not only that, but as I mentioned at the beginning, guys, in January 2021, Netflix released a show called Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. I'd highly recommend you guys to go ahead and watch that if this case is of interest to you. It's a little longer, a bit more longer-winded, but it is really interesting, and they do look into the ghost stuff. So if that's of any interest, then enjoy. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it from myself and myself. I hope you guys enjoyed this show, and let me know what other cases would you like to see, and more importantly, guys, let me know what you think about this case. How did she die? I'll see you guys on the next episode. Sorry, fish.